What is up, guys? Welcome back to yet another brand new Mage Bang gaming video. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day as always. And today, as there's been a lot recently, we have some more negative Xbox news. It's very, very frustrating to see this kind of stuff, to be honest. It's sad. I'm sad to constantly have to talk about Xbox in a negative way. I get a lot of people on my channel who are Xbox fans who now get very frustrated with the fact I'm talking about this and just tell me not to bother talking about it. But it's like, well, if people don't speak up about this stuff, nothing is ever going to improve at Xbox, and shilling for a company like Microsoft does nothing for you. You get left behind, you get worse products if you don't complain. I've always brought up the fact that, like, when they tried to increase the price of gold, right? Live gold. Everybody complained about it and they went back on it because people complained. If you don't complain, nothing gets better at the company that you like. You have to call out this stuff. There was an idiot recently on one of my YouTube channels who just told me to stop talking about the fact that there are games running worse on Xbox than PlayStation from their own developers at Xbox, and he just said don't bother talking about it, it's not a big deal. It's like, what are you doing? Like, your console that you shill for and you prefer is running worse than the competition. But anyway, there is a ton of studios closing. Microsoft closes Redfall developer Arcane Austin, Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks, and more in devastating cuts at Bethesda. So Microsoft has closed a number of Bethesda studios, including Redfall maker Arcane Austin, Hi-Fi Rush, and the Evil Within developer Tango Gameworks, and more in devastating cuts at Bethesda, IGN can confirm. Alpha Dog Games, maker of mobile game Mighty Doom, will also close. Roundhouse Studios will be absorbed by the Elder Scrolls Online developer ZeniMax Online Studios. Microsoft, currently valued at over $3 trillion, did not say how many staff will lose their jobs, but significant layoffs are inevitable. IGN asked at Bethesda for a comment. Microsoft declined to expand further when contacted by IGN. On Redfall, the disastrous vampire co-op game will now not receive promised updates, including an offline mode and new character DLC, as Microsoft has ended all development on the game. Microsoft said Redfall will remain online to play, and it will provide a make good offer to those who bought the Hero DLC. And you can see the tweet here from Arcane Studios. There we go. We'll put that a bit bigger on screen. There we go. Today it was announced that Arcane Austin will close. Yeah, it's this really does suck. I am very disappointed to see that. You guys can read through this. It's on Twitter, but I want to carry on talking about my own opinions on this. So just to go through this, so Arcane Austin, that is going to be closed. Alpha Dog Studios, we didn't really see a lot from them. This more mobile studio. Tango Gameworks is a big one I'm disappointed in. They're, of course, the creators of Evil Within, which has been a great horror franchise when we've had those games. And, of course, recently Hi-Fi Rush, which apparently, according to Phil Spencer and everybody at Microsoft, was a big hit. Apparently did really well, was really successful. Now, I want to kind of talk about this because this is a real shame. Now, it's a real shame for reasons that we were told that this generation from Microsoft, before people start getting upset in the comments, Microsoft told us that this generation was going to be the generation for Xbox. They're going to be pushing back at Sony. They're going to be buying studios, having a big library of great games exclusive to platforms where Game Pass exists. These are Phil Spencer's own words, and they've not given that the time of day and a chance to actually succeed. We heard Satya Nadella say we want to actually compete. We are in gaming for the long run. We are invested in gaming, right? And now this massive company has just abandoned studios that have created great games like Hi-Fi Rush. Now, I understand Arcane Austin a little bit more because of the disappointment at Redfall. Now, this was just a badly managed project. This should have been delayed or just scrapped, to be honest, because this is just a disappointment. It was the first kind of Xbox exclusive from the Activision Blizzard, not Activision Blizzard, the ZeniMax deal that they got, and it was just a huge disappointment. This should have been delayed. If it had launched at 60 frames on the console, I think it would have had more of a chance, but that completely obliterated the game because people just didn't want to play that. We were told from Xbox we'd have 60 FPS games. That was the big game changer this generation, if you remember that. And I think that would have helped, but having the game just better would have just been great. I think that it wasn't a very good game. So I understand a little bit more why this is going to be closed, and I'm glad they are going to be refunding people who bought the ridiculously overexpensive version that gave you the DLC that's now been scrapped. So I'm glad they're at least refunding people, because that's really, really bad. But studios like Tango Gameworks, which personally for me have just released great games. Both the Evil Within games are fantastic, and Hi-Fi Rush is really, really good. And I'm just disappointed that Microsoft hasn't given this whole exclusive to their platform deal a good go. Like, we've not really had that many games come out. They're not really settling into these studios. We're not in a position where a lot of the games that are coming out, including Starfield, had a ton of development time spent on making PlayStation versions for those games before it was bought by Microsoft. So we haven't seen these studios only make games for one platform, or a lot of these studios at least, because they would have been in development before the acquisition went through. And I think it's disappointing that they're just bringing every game to PlayStation. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm a PC player mainly. You get the best of both worlds. You get Xbox games, you get PC games. But PlayStation games, sorry. But I understand in the console market, exclusives do matter. I don't care what Phil Spencer says. I don't like exclusives because in the end of the day, it restricts people from playing more games. So I love the fact that I'm on PC and I get to play kind of everything, and everything comes to PC now. Maybe not day and date for PlayStation, but I would wait for the better version of Spider-Man 2. 120 FPS actual 4K is going to look great. So I prefer waiting. But I do understand that what sells consoles is good games, and having more people on your platform. The reason if you have more people on your platform is because you're making good games. You only have to look at the competition. Nintendo never releases a single game on any other platform. The only way to do it is via emulation. So you have to buy a Switch, hence why it sold 141 million units. They have great games exclusive to their platform. PlayStation, same thing. They're already at like 50 million units. They're double the sales of Series X and Series S combined. They've doubled the sales, right? They just have 21 million units or something like that. The Series X and S are at, and PlayStation's like 51 or something like that. So in the end of the day, when I speak to my colleagues at work who are like casual gamers, they buy 1 to 2 games a year. What are the reasons they buy a PlayStation over Xbox? The games. My friend can play Final Fantasy on his PlayStation, the new ones, and he cannot do that on Xbox. So for that for him is enough of a reason to just simply buy a PlayStation. No more talks. He likes Final Fantasy, he'll just buy a PlayStation. Never consider an Xbox because that game isn't available on the Xbox. Simple as that. And that just shows exclusives, whether they're not necessarily exclusive to PlayStation, but they pay to get that game exclusive to PlayStation, so it kind of is. They don't own the studio or whatever, but those games only release on PlayStation. So what will he buy? A PlayStation. I got another colleague who just likes the Spider-Man games. Outright simple decision. He'll buy that. People who just play Call of Duty and FIFA, even for FIFA, they'll be like, whoa, the console market is way bigger on PlayStation. The FIFA marketplace, which not enough people think of, the online FIFA community is 10 times the size on PlayStation as it is on Xbox. The market where you sell players and you buy players is bigger, meaning it's better to play on PlayStation. Like, it's just a simple fact, at least where I'm from in the UK, that people just go and buy a PlayStation based on the amount of people that buy a PlayStation, their friends that are on that system already, and the good games. That is the 3 big decisions that people make when buying a console. And unfortunately, that is PlayStation easily. There is no reason right now, if you can only afford one system, to go out and buy an Xbox over a PlayStation. You're not missing out on enough things buying an Xbox. Buying a PlayStation than you are buying an Xbox. You have far more things on the Sony side. And I think it's sad that Microsoft didn't give this a real good go with games like well, we've had Starfield. It's getting a 60 FPS upgrade. That should have been done at launch. That just should have been there. I genuinely think Starfield would have been a big success if that was 60 frames at launch. We've got Indiana Jones coming up, which is something to be really excited about. Hellblade is coming out in like 2 weeks, and I've not seen a single marketing campaign for that game, which is just disappointing, because I think Hellblade genuinely could be a really, really good game. We've got Avowed coming up. We've got a decent lineup of games coming up for the Xbox platform, and we're kind of in a position now where there's two things we just don't know about the games that are coming up. One, are they going to be 60 FPS? We have no clue if Indiana Jones is going to be 60 FPS. I'd love to say it was, but we genuinely don't know, because Microsoft has now set a precedent where a lot of their games are coming out on Series X and S at 30 frames per second. So you cannot guarantee at all what frame rate any of those games are running at, because there's been more games launched at 30 FPS than there has at 60 from Microsoft. You also don't know if that game is just going to come to PlayStation, which means, again, going back to when talking to the general public about what platform they will buy, they are seeing these games now coming to PlayStation and realizing they could just wait, a bit like I do with PC. I don't buy games on PlayStation anymore because I just wait for them to come to PC, right? Stellar Blade, I'm not going to buy that game because it's going to come to PC eventually. And I'll happily wait a year or 2 years to get an actively better version with higher graphics settings, higher resolution, and better frame rate. And the same with people now who just want one console. The obvious answer to do now is buy a PlayStation and just wait for the games from Xbox, if there are any that are worth playing, because Redfall's certainly not, to come to PlayStation. We've already hearing rumors about Starfield being the next title to be ported to PlayStation, and I don't know. It probably won't be. It'll probably be a year or two after each game that we do get to see these kind of things. Those 4 games, which is now 5 games, which already they told us was only 4, it's now 5 games. Those 5 titles are now on PlayStation, or a lot of them are on PlayStation, running better, having better versions of the game. Whatever reason it is, if it's just a shadow upgrade, it doesn't matter. It's a better version in general, and those people now don't need to go out and buy an Xbox to play the games. And again, this was a test. These 4 or 5 games were a test to see how well they perform on PlayStation, and guess what? They performed very well on PlayStation. They sold a lot of copies. They were in the top selling games on the PlayStation console. Microsoft are going to keep doing this. They're going to realize they're making more money. Maybe they wouldn't have had to shut so many studios if they'd made more money off games that were coming to all platforms. So Microsoft are going to see this as it was a very good thing, and it's going to happen more often, which is fine, but it is going to stop people buying their console. And as much as Microsoft only focus on the PC market these days and don't care about the console market, in the end of the day, the console market is a huge number of Game Pass subscriptions that they're now going to miss out on because people don't need to buy an Xbox to play their games anymore. And that means less people buying Xboxes, less Game Pass subscriptions. So I don't know. I just see a big downfall of Xbox here. I don't see this being a thing that's going to last forever with the way they're doing it. And personally, I'm just very sad that they didn't give a big enough opportunity to let all these studios that they've recently purchased make games for their hardware only and run their own exclusives. Because in the end of the day, competition is good. Having Microsoft gone is not going to make the Sony platform better. It's going to have Sony put their prices up, be less aggressive because they don't need to compete with anybody at all. They don't compete with Nintendo in the same way, and they've now got no one to be a competitor in the console space. If Microsoft is just going down and down with the sales of their system, there's no one to compete with. Your PlayStation is going to end up being worse because there's no competition. So I would love to have seen Microsoft throw this in Sony's face and compete. And personally, I think a lot of these studio closures are down to Activision Blizzard. That was a massive acquisition with a huge amount of staff. There was a lot of crossover. I think they don't need all these studios because they've got so many employees from all the studios they've bought that they had to get rid of a ton. There was loads of layoffs. There's going to be more going forward over the next 12 to 18 months that Tom Henderson, I believe, said on X. There's going to be a lot more of this. And I personally think, and I said this all along, I did not like the Activision Blizzard King acquisition. I think they would have been much better off And I think this is where their plans of exclusivity changed with the Activision Blizzard King deal. They've just gave up and they thought we're not going to be allowed to compete because we have to release games on other platforms because of that deal. I think there's probably some sort of clause in there that maybe they do need to start bringing stuff because of the amount of studios they own. I genuinely think they should have scrapped that deal the minute it started going through to FTC and should have bought someone like CD Projekt Red that releases phenomenal games, phenomenal story games to compete with PlayStation's brilliant story games. They could have bought someone like CD Projekt Red and probably a bunch of other studios with the amount of money they spent on Activision Blizzard King. And I would have preferred them rather than to just buy a juggernaut like Call of Duty and just have loads of money coming in. I know it's the best for business probably, but I would have preferred to see them go at some big games like CD Projekt Red, who release great story, narrative-driven games. Say what you like about Cyberpunk, the game is phenomenal now, and I can't imagine they're going to make the same mistake going forward. So personally, I think that would have been a better plan, because that's what you need to go against someone like Sony, who just has incredible story, narrative-driven games. And I don't know, I think CD Projekt's games like Witcher and Cyberpunk are better than every single Sony game, in my opinion. I enjoy them more because they're story games, but they also are fantastic in the gameplay section. But I don't know, I'm just disappointed to see so many studios that they've just purchased close, people losing jobs, and I just am at the point where I have no faith in anything Microsoft is doing with that platform, and I'm sad to see it. I'd rather they just sold Xbox at this point and had, I don't know, somebody else running it. I don't care. Just someone who actually cares about the brands that they're purchasing and the games that they want to create, because they aren't caring about this, and it's really sad to see. But thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye bye for now.